It was late August in Watermead Woods, and every creature from the tiniest gnat to the largest invisible moss dragon was in an uproar preparing for Jamboree. Jamboree was a festival that took place every year, celebrating life, love, and the wonders of nature. Everyone wanted to make sure that it was the biggest and best festival Watermead Woods had ever seen, since it was the 20th anniversary of the first ever Jamboree. There would be games and events, funfair rides, snacks, fancy dress and masks, wrestling, frog ball and cricket tournaments, storytelling, speeches and lectures, and of course DJs and dancing. There would also be a live band on the main stage at King Lear's Lake. This was an especially big deal, since the band was the biggest, the best, and the only band in all the woods. The Madpoles. The Madpoles were acoustic punk indie postmodern country bluegrass pop drumming bum popping band of frogs who'd spent every evening for the past 5 weeks practicing away at the Heron's Legs, which was their local pub. The Madpoles were known for their croaking vocals, twangy banjos and guitars, booming basses, ground-shaking drums, and of course, MC Jelly, who rapped alongside the band's lead singer Daphne O'Donnell. He also specialized in running around the stage and spraying the audience with bottles of their own brand of root beer, a specialty soft drink by the Frogs of Watermead, which was packed with so much sugar it could help a sloth win a marathon. It was the day before Jamboree, and the band were getting everything ready for the big show. As usual, the boys wanted to relax, drink root beer, and jam away freely. But Daphne was an absolute drill sergeant when it came to her art, and she wouldn't tolerate any shenanigans until after the performance. "What are you doing, Connor? You're going to get your tongue stuck in the cymbals again, you keep drumming with it like. What happened to your bulrushes there?" The large brown bullfrog with a tattooed face and golden necklace scratched his wart-covered head. "Oh no, I reckon I must have ate 'em. They were full of crunchy little beetles that make a ruddy good treat on buttered toast. I'll have to hop back to Barge and fetch some new ones." Daphne crossed her muscular arms in front of her, shooting her drummer a frustrated look. "For goodness sakes, Connor, you better get a move on then. We got dress rehearsal in an hour." Daphne's black summer dress was covered in embroidered water lilies and dragonflies. It swished and swayed as she looked over the rest of the band, shaking her head in frustration. MC Jelly and the guitarist Keith were busy taking turns beatboxing with root beer in their mouths. They would each take turns on the microphone, filling their mouths up to the brim with the frothy, fizzy, fresh root beer, then make the craziest and most ridiculous noises she had ever heard. "Honestly, I can't even start. I don't even know where to start with you," said Daphne as she walked past them, giving a quick nod to Paddy on the bass guitar, who was almost always chilled out and quiet as a rule. When she came to the banjo player, Seamus Marsh, her slimy lips formed into a big smile. Marsh was a lot younger than the rest of them, and was still finding his feet, which were tangled up somewhere beneath his big frog bottom. He was the best and only banjo player in Watermead Woods, however, and Daphne would be lost without the plump green frog, who wore his hair in a topknot and no shirt, with tight black jeans and a nose ring. As she looked closer, though, something seemed to be wrong with Seamus. He didn't have his usual carefree smile, and the twang of his banjo wasn't quite as twangy as usual. "You're right there, Seamus. Big night coming up tomorrow. Are you excited to hit the stage for the first time, then?" Seamus didn't look at Daphne as he plucked away. He just gave her a shrug and said nothing. Daphne noticed his fingers were hitting the banjo strings extra hard, when suddenly a light cracking noise, and then twang! The neck of the banjo snapped in two. Seamus stared down at it in disbelief as everyone stopped what they were doing, gasping and pointing at the broken instrument. Daphne was shocked. "Oh, Seamus, your poor banjo, what happened? Are you hurt?" Seamus threw his hands in the air. "I've got no idea. I was literally doing the exact same things that I always do, but the stupid music just wouldn't sound right. Now this." Daphne placed a careful hand on his shoulder. "You're all right, Seamus. It must have been years of wear and tear and all. It was your grandpa's before you, right?" Connor scratched the warts on his head again, dumbfounded. "Oh no, Seamus has broken his banjo. Now he won't be able to play in Jamboree. Poor Seamus." Daphne turned to him with a scowl as tears began to well up in Seamus's eyes. "Yeah, thanks for that touch of wisdom there, Connor." She turned back to her depressed and fed-up banjoist. "Is there anything you want to talk with me about? Anything that's been bothering you, like? You know I'm good for a chinwag." Seamus stood up in a huff, picked up the broken banjo and a jumbo-sized bottle of root beer, and began to walk towards the woods. "No? It's okay. I'm going to go get this old toothpick fixed. I'll be back as soon as I can." The Madpoles were all very concerned now. "Yo!" yelled MC Jelly. "Fam, we need you back as soon as, for real. Safe, G?" Seamus said nothing. As the sun was beginning to set, he disappeared through a cluster of tall grass and sticky weeds into the darkness of the trees. The angry and fed-up frog was on his way to the other side of the woods, where a tatty old rope bridge crossed into the Muddy Flats district. There lived a wise old toad by the name of Sage Josh, who, as it happened, made and fixed instruments as a side hustle when he wasn't doing wise and magical things. "Everyone's going to laugh at me tomorrow," he said to himself as he approached the creaking bridge. Below the bridge was an old canal which had very little water left in it. As he hopped across the bridge, he swore he could hear something on the other side. The snapping of sticks underfoot, a rustle in the bushes, a deep, low, and menacing growl, as if there was a tiny earthquake brewing just beneath the soil. Seamus stopped with a shiver, feeling the fear rising in his chest and twisting his stomach into knots. "Who's there?" Silence. He continued forward a moment, then paused again. In the trees before him he could see a large shadow waiting for his arrival. He took a few deep breaths, puffed out his chest, and stepped forward. He was not a happy frog, and today he meant business. "Listen up. Nobody's stopping me today. You got that? Nobody. I'm going to see Sage Josh so he can fix my banjo. I've got a gig at the Jamboree tomorrow, and I'm going to be the best banjo player these woods have ever seen." Silence again. Seamus took the final hop off the bridge and felt his feet sink into the cool, thick sludge on the other side. That's when he heard it. A loud and familiar-sounding twang. The shadow in the trees began lurching forward, and into the light stepped the biggest animal Seamus had ever seen, with the biggest teeth he'd ever seen, and the biggest banjo he'd ever seen. "So, you like to have a pick at the old Earl Scruggs, do you? Well, I hate to break it to you, sunshine, but this is my patch of wood. Clear off or I'll have you." Seamus felt his heart begin to thunder at the slathering, spit-lathering, bone-shattering, cold-hard battering teeth of the monster before him. A massive white bear. "Sorry, Mr. Bear, but I won't be leaving. I need to see Sage Josh. Like I said, it's the Jamboree. My band needs a banjoist, and I have a job to do. Eat me if you must, but I won't back down." The bear wrinkled his nose in a confused look. before reaching out and poking him in the stomach with a claw. Ugh. I don't eat slimy things, mate. But, hey, did you say your band's a man short? Well, that's very interesting. Well, I've always wanted to be on stage. Not like me old pen at the zoo before I made me exit. This could be just the job to get a bit of respect round these woods. I'll make you a deal, Frog. I'll let you pass through and see your little toad, mate, and I'll make me way over to the old jamboree. If you can get your banjo fixed, we'll have a little battle to see who's going up on stage. Winner take all. What do you reckon? Up for a little challenge? Seamus croaked. You what? No way. The Madpoles are my band. The towering bear leaned down at him, snarling, with his yellow jagged fangs dripping hot drool in front of Seamus. On second thought, I've never tried frog's legs before. Seamus waved his arms frantically. Okay, it's a deal. The bear gave him a satisfied nod before lumbering off towards the bridge. Big Bear King's the name. Good luck, Froggo. Don't be late. After all, the show must go on, with or without you. Big Bear King let out a rumbling laugh as he sauntered over the bridge, plucking away at his shiny black banjo and whistling along to the tune as he disappeared. Seamus tucked his hands into his torn dungarees with a sigh and carried on into Muddy Flats. It was now night in Watermead Woods, and the songs of hooting owls and yapping foxes filled his ears as he hopped along. He was glad at least that the full moon was out, because it was the only thing to light his way. He knew that Sage Josh lived at the far end of the Muddy Flats with his tribe. Before his grandfather had passed away, they had been the best of friends, and his grandpa had always had his banjo fixed by the Sage. If anyone could get the job done, it was him. As he approached the end of Muddy Flats, he could hear the robust, low croaking of the toad tribes of Watermead. The same 5 families of toads had lived there since the first trees were planted centuries ago. He approached an old sewer pipe that was sticking out of a high, muddy wall. The croaking got louder as he peered inside the entrance to the pipe, and he could hear deep inside someone muttering and griping to themselves. Seamus rolled up his sleeves, fixed his hair, and marched right in. Dad nabbit all the tarnation and Saskamageddon. I asked that block-headed pawn dipper Louie to order up 50 packs of nylon guitar strings, and I get 50 packs of nylon G-strings. Now just what in all the ponds of this good green earth is I going to do with all these ladies' underpants? I can't wear 'em. Seamus peeked in to see a large, plump, bearded toad sat in a pile of freshly bought underwear, a wall of guitars, banjos, flutes, and any other instrument you could think of behind him. His eyes looked barely open. Just then, Seamus felt the uncontrollable urge to sneeze. No. Too late. He let out the most rip-roaring sneeze anyone had ever heard in those woods. Achoo! Whoever that is, you ain't getting any bless yous from me, so I suggest you pack up your gear and hightails it back to wherever you've been done come from. Now, one bless you ain't never enough. People always gotta, achoo, achoo, interrupted Seamus with another massive sneeze. There now, you see that? Greedy old big nostril bullfrogs coming in here and spraying their nose puppies all over the Toad Hall signature guitars. Better skedaddle. I'm in the middle of a hosiery crisis. Seamus emerged into the light, clutching his broken banjo. Please, sir, it's the jamboree tomorrow, and I came all this way to get my banjo fixed. It was my grandfather's. Can you help me? Sage Josh grunted and waved him away. Don't care if it belonged to your pappy's pappy. I got's. Wait a minute. Sage Josh stood and grabbed his walking stick, hobbling over where Seamus was stood, and took a long look into his eyes. Your pappy didn't have to be old Frank Marsh, did he? You're the spitting image of him." Seamus nodded. "Seamus Marsh is the name. This was his banjo." Sage Josh's stern look melted into a smile. "I didn't think I'd ever see this old thing again. Me and your pappy had a little argument a while back and stopped talking. Sure wish we'd have let bygones be bygones before we passed. Heck, I can't get any of these old git boxes fixed before the morrow anyway. Got no guitar strings. Got plenty of banjo strings and wood in the back, though. Take me 2, maybe 3 hours tops. Come on back and tell me all about the things you and your pappy got up to when you was a young'un," he said as he stroked his long wispy beard. "I'll tell you all about your pappy and me and the old harmonica and banjo duet as well." Sage Josh put his long and bony-toed arm around Seamus, and they walked together further into the old pipe, into the depths of the workshop. 3 hours later, Seamus was holding his granddad's old twanger of a banjo in his hot little frog hands. He couldn't believe it, how new and fresh it looked, and the neck of the banjo was strong and sturdy. "Well now, I ain't lost my touch yet. Why don't you give her a little twiddle and tell me what you think?" Seamus's eyes sunk to the floor, and he began to feel anxious again. He remembered Big Bear King and his challenge. He went to pluck at the strings, but the sound that came out of the banjo was like a cat had been stretched over a washboard, and its whiskers plucked to make music. Absolutely horrid. "Boy, I thought you said you was in a band and could play that old thing." Seamus sat on the floor and buried his face in his hands as he told the old toad all about the bear and the jamboree the next day. "I want to be the best banjoist these woods have ever seen, even better than Grandpa. But ever since I found out I was playing in jamboree, I haven't been able to carry a single tune." Sage Josh smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Well, boy, I reckon I got everything you need to be the best dadgum banjoleer in all the wide world. Never mind these here woods." Seamus' eyes lit up with excitement. "Really? How?" "Well," croaked the old toad, "it ain't gonna be easy, but I can get you there before the night is done. First, help me clean up all this underwear, would you? Got no use for that laying around the shop, and the customers ain't gonna be happy when they see it." Seamus was eager to help and agreed straight away. As the frog and the toad set about the monumental cleanup task, Sage Josh hummed the odd song here and there, especially when he heard Seamus start to grumble. "Like this, boy, watch." He lay on his back, and pulling one of the pairs of pantalones against his feet, sent them flying across the shop and into the big returns bag he had set up on the other side. "You try it, son, go on." Seamus wrinkled his nose but gave it a go. Before he knew it, they were having a grand old time, laughing and joking together, sending dozens of pairs of knickers flying across the old sewer pipe into the bag, until finally there were none left. The frog and the toad's stomachs felt like they would split from laughter. Finally, Seamus stood up. "Okay, I'm ready to learn." Sage Josh waved him away. "You kidding? We just did like 30 minutes of blood, sweat, and tears hard labor. I needs me a snack first." Seamus felt his stomach begin to growl at the thought. "Well, now that you mention it, I'm pretty hungry." Sage Josh snapped his fingers. "Now you're talking. Housefly, pickle sandwiches, and down-home root beer on tap. Toad style. Let's go whip it up real quick like." Seamus helped him in the kitchen. It was great fun catching all the flies fresh from the pantry, and the stories Sage Josh told about his grandpa and him back in the old days were hilarious. By the time they had eaten and talked the night away, it was getting very late, or early, as the first glint of sunrise was creeping into the woods. The old toad yawned, scratching his bum and stretching out his bones. "Well, it's been great having you for company, Seamus, but this old man's got to be getting off to his beddy byes. Hope you do well at your little shindig tonight. I might see if I can hop along." Seamus's eyes went wide, and an angry frown overtook his face. "Hey, that isn't fair. You told me you would give me the secret to being the best banjoist in the world." Sage Josh looked offended. "Well, I done told you that, and I done did that, boy. You got every little thing you need." Seamus crossed his arms. That's a load of garbage, Pops, and you know it. Fess up, give me the goods. What's the secret? The old toad shrugged. You still don't get it, do you? Let me tell you something, boy. I've been doing music in these here woods for a dozen lifetimes. Outlived all my friends so far and heard so many songs in my time. I could be a hoppin', talking playlist on them newfangled thingamahooters the kids like. Cassette players, that's it. Seamus rolled his big slimy eyes. Being a good musician requires work, hard work. It's a serious thing, exclaimed Seamus. Sage Josh sauntered over to him and looked him dead in the face, his large, round, sloppy eyes seeming to peer right into his soul. Son, you ever heard somebody work the piano before? You ever heard someone tell a little tadpole they can't sing him a nursery rhyme because it's hard work? Of course you ain't. You gotta play the banjo, not work it. The entire thing's a game. Tossing them underbritches round the den and jumping at flies these past couple hours, well now, that was fun. We were definitely playing then. That's the same music everywhere in the world if you stop and listen to it. It's all play at the end of the day. To be the best, you gotta do your own personal best. The best you can do, lighten up and have fun. You don't gotta be better than everyone else at everything. Never mind what Big Buck King or whoever is doing. You gotta get up there and jamboree, boy, you understand? Seamus was speechless. Sage Josh nodded at the banjo. Pick up that there banjo, boy. Play me one of your pappy's old-timey melodies to help me sleep. I ain't heard any of his songs in a good while. Only play it like he would have played it. None of this showing off nonsense. Feel that music. Seamus scratched his chin, still skeptical. He picked up his banjo and began to play a soft, sad song, simple and slow. Sage Josh nodded his head and closed his eyes. Wee doggies, now that's the ticket. Silver moon, light up my darkest night. Show me my dearest love, she left me cold and fried. Sage Josh sang along with the old song, and Seamus played it to perfection. There. Now, you see that? Your pappy would be so darn proud of you, boy. Now go on and get. You got a jamboree to enjoy. I'll see you tonight. Seamus bid Sage Josh good night and hopped out of the sewer pipe back into the muddy flats. I can't thank you enough, Sage. The only response he got was a low and peaceful snore. When he arrived back at the reed beds of Grebe Pool, the sound of vigorous banjo strings plucking against the backdrop of Daphne's beautiful deep voice could be heard. Rather than panicking and rushing ahead, he slowed down to a walk, gently opening the door to the heron's legs, and walked in. The Madpoles were on stage jamming away, and there was Big Bear King, going wild to the delight of Seamus's bandmates. When Connor saw that he had walked in, he stopped playing immediately. Oh, look, Seamus is back. You all right, mate? We were starting to worry. You've been gone all night, and it's the day of the big jamboree. Seamus regarded him with a frown. I think you would have been fine. You've already found my replacement, apparently. Big Bear King chuckled. I gotta say, for an army of frogs, these lot know how to put on a proper show. Such a nice bunch as well. I could get used to this. Seamus shrugged. That's fine. You guys go ahead and play tonight. I'll sit this one out. Daphne hopped off the stage towards her returned friend. Seamus, you can't be serious. We just like the way Big Bear plays is all, and he offered to give us a hand with practice. We could never replace you. You got your banjo all fixed, right? Big Bear King lumbered off the stage towards the frogs with a frown on his big bare lips. Hold on a minute, I'm a bearing me word. We had a deal. It's not fair unless we have a battle of the banjos like we said. Winner to be judged by the patrons of this fine establishment and the band itself. Whoever wins takes a spot at Jamboree and carries on with the Madpoles, yeah? Daphne looked shocked. Seamus, you've not made a deal like that, have you? You're mad? Didn't you think to ask us what we thought? Seamus nodded. It's okay, Daphne. I'm just going to have fun and play the best I can. I know I'll always have music, and I'll always have you guys as friends. Daphne sighed and gave him a big, sloppy, slimy frog hug. "You're too right, Seamus. Right, boys, let's get this battle started. From the top." The Battle of the Banjos was a close one. Seamus started them off with a slow and steady lullaby his mother used to sing to him. Big Bear King immediately followed with a fast-paced old country shindig that really got the place jumping. They played and played, song after song, chord after chord, note after note, until the both of them couldn't play any more. When it was finally over, the band and the customers and the Heron's Legs all got together. Seamus and Big Bear eagerly awaited the results. Connor took to the stage and stood at the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, after careful deliberation, a decision's been reached as to who will stay on and play with the Madpoles at tonight's jamboree. We just don't know." "What?" said Seamus and Big Bear together in surprise. "Both contenders played with expert form and skill, and it's too difficult to decide who we think would be best for the role. So we would appreciate it if you would both join us on stage at tonight's jamboree and show off your battle skills to the audience." Seamus and Big Bear smiled at each other. "That was lots of fun, mate. You really kept me on me toes. What do you say?" Seamus extended his hand to Big Bear King and wrapped it around his claw. "Deal." That night, it was the greatest jamboree they had ever experienced. The fireworks were epic. The light shows, costumes, and dancing were beyond sensational. Everyone had a great time and were now gathered in the thousands at the main stage at King Lear's Lake to watch the Madpoles perform. Sage Josh sat in the front row with the rest of Seamus's family, stuffing his face with loads of mosquito crepes and gnat cakes, and cheering them on with his mouth full of food. Seamus, Big Bear, and the Madpoles put on an amazing performance, with another Battle of the Banjos to take place as the final song. From that day forth, Big Bear King showed up regularly to play with the Madpoles, and also worked as their personal security guard. The most important thing, though, was that whenever they all got together, they always had lots of fun making music, drinking root beer, and enjoying life together.